Have you ever wondered if the quietest person in the room could save a life? At 2:47 in the morning, a shy girl named Isla Carter picked up a phone call that would expose a lie, shatter a reputation, and prove that sometimes the most inspirational moments come from voices the world has trained itself not to hear. Avery Tower in downtown Seattle stood like a sleeping giant, 42 floors of glass and steel breathing in the darkness. Inside, the lobby stretched empty and cold. The only warmth came from a single desk lamp casting its glow over Isla Carter's worn notebook and the half-eaten sandwich she'd packed from home. 26 years old. Night shift receptionist. The kind of shy girl people's eyes passed over without stopping invisible, not because she was unseen, but because she'd learned to make herself small. Above her, executives slept in their beds. Below her, in the hospital 2 blocks away, her father fought pneumonia with insurance that barely covered the oxygen tank. Isla worked 2 jobs. She smiled when people needed her to. She stayed quiet when they didn't. Her fingers traced the edge of a photograph tucked inside her wallet. Her mother's face forever frozen at 41. 11 years gone, but the supermarket still haunted Isla's dreams. The fluorescent lights. Her mother gasping on the linoleum. Isla's 15-year-old voice calling out, "Please, somebody help us," and the sound of footsteps walking away. "I'm trying, Mom," Isla whispered to the photograph. "I'm still trying." The wound lived in her throat. The belief that her voice didn't matter. That when it counted most, no one would stop to listen. It was the opposite of inspirational. It was the slow erasure of self-worth, one ignored plea at a time. The phone rang. Not the main line. Not the delivery entrance. The executive floor. 42 stories up where the lights had been dark for hours. Isla stared at the blinking extension. Her hand hesitated over the receiver. "Who calls from an empty building at 3 in the morning?" she answered. "Night reception." "How can I help?" Silence. Then breathing rapid, uneven, barely controlled. And a man's voice breaking. I can't fix this. Someone's going to get hurt." What happens when the shy girl who never speaks up becomes the only voice that can save a stranger from disaster? Isla's heart kicked against her ribs. The voice on the phone wasn't asking for directions or reporting a broken lock. This was panic, raw and drowning. "Sir, I need you to breathe with me." Isla heard herself say, her own voice steadier than she'd ever heard it. "In through your nose. Hold it. Out through your mouth." The man obeyed. Isla could hear him counting silently, fighting for control. "Tell me what's happening," she said softly. "The system, the backup medical data system, it's failing. I tried to reset it, but His voice cracked. "If this crashes, patients get the wrong treatment protocols. People could die because I can't figure this out." Isla's mind flashed to the previous Tuesday. Walter Green, the 62-year-old security guard who'd worked at Avery Tower for 17 years, had been doing his rounds when a circuit breaker tripped. He'd called Isla to hold a flashlight while he checked the backup panel. "This is serious business, kid," Walter had said, pointing to the panel on the right wall. "See that switch? If it starts flickering, that means the whole backup architecture is about to fail. Most folks don't even know this panel exists anymore." Isla had memorized every detail, not because she thought she'd need it, but because remembering things people told her was the only way she felt useful. "Listen to me," Isla said into the phone. "Is there a panel on the right wall, metal about 3 feet wide with a flickering switch near the top?" A pause, footsteps echoing through the phone. Then, "Yes. How did you—" "Open it. There's a manual override. Red handle. Pull it down, count to 10, then push it back up." She could hear him moving. The creak of the panel. his breathing still too fast on the edge of losing control completely. "It's okay." Isla said, her tone gentle but firm. "I'm right here. You're not alone." The breathing slowed, synchronized with hers. In this heartwarming moment of connection, a stranger trusted a voice he couldn't see. Click. A mechanical hum through the phone, then a long, shuddering exhale. It's stabilizing. The system is back online. A pause, then softer. You just saved people's lives." Isla closed her eyes. Relief washed over her, along with something she hadn't felt in 11 years, the feeling that her voice had reached someone, that it had mattered. "Thank you," the man whispered, emotion thick in his words. "Your voice. It feels safe." The line went dead. Isla sat frozen, staring at the phone. Her reflection in the darkened lobby windows looked small and uncertain. She glanced up at the 42nd floor. Every window was black. Kid Walter appeared from the shadows near the elevator bank, his security badge catching the lamplight. He moved slowly, the way older men do when their knees remember every decade. "Who were you talking to?" Walter asked, studying her face. "I don't know," Isla admitted. "Someone on the executive floor, but all the lights are off up there." Walter checked his tablet, scanning the building access log. "Nobody's clocked into that floor since 6 p.m. You sure about the extension?" But Isla was certain. The call had been internal. And that voice, desperate yet educated, carrying the weight of someone used to having answers, belonged to someone important. The next morning, Vanessa Monroe arrived at 7:55 a.m. sharp, her heels announcing her presence before she rounded the corner. Front desk manager, 34 years old. Hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She'd been kind once, people said, before the corporate world taught her that kindness was weakness. "Isla." Vanessa's voice cut through the lobby. "My office, now." The small room behind the reception desk smelled like stale coffee and fading ambition. Vanessa closed the door with deliberate care. "You took a technical call last night." Isla's stomach dropped. "Someone was in trouble. I just tried to help." "That's not your job." Vanessa crossed her arms, her stance defensive. "You answer phones. You smile. You direct people to the right floor. You do not play IT support for executive systems." But he was panicking. "I couldn't just—" "You overstepped." Vanessa leaned against her desk, her expression hardening. "I used to be like you, Isla. Soft. Thinking kindness and hard work would get me somewhere." She laughed, but it sounded hollow, broken. "You know where it got me: overlooked, underpaid, invisible. So I learned. The only people who survive are the ones who make themselves impossible to ignore." Isla looked at the floor. The words struck exactly where her mother's memory lived. "I called for help. No one stopped." "Do you understand?" Vanessa pressed. "Yes." "Good." This conversation never happened. When Isla left the office, Walter was waiting by the vending machine. He didn't say anything at first, just handed her a cup of coffee from the break room, the good kind, not the lobby sludge. "Don't let someone else rewrite the story you're trying to heal," Walter said quietly. "You know, people my age grew up being told to stay quiet. Stay in our lane, don't make waves." He looked at her with knowing eyes. "Maybe your generation is here to prove we were wrong." Isla wanted to believe him, but as she returned to her desk, she couldn't shake the feeling that some voices were simply meant to go unheard. But what good is finding your voice if no one believes it's worth listening to? By Tuesday morning, the entire building was buzzing with news. Isla heard it first from the delivery driver, then from the cleaning crew, then from the junior accountants getting coffee in the lobby. Hailtech, the medical technology company that leased the top 3 floors, had narrowly avoided a catastrophic system failure. Critical patient data, treatment protocols, medication schedules. If the backup system hadn't been manually reset in time, patients across 4 hospitals could have received incorrect care, potentially life-threatening mistakes. Isla's hands went cold as the realization settled over her. "Did you hear?" one of the marketing assistants said by the elevator. The CEO himself was here, Mason Hale, in the middle of the night trying to stop the crash. Isla's breath caught in her throat. Mason Hale. She'd seen his face in the building directory. 38 years old. Self-made billionaire. Apparently his entire technical team was unreachable, the assistant continued. He was the only one who remembered the old backup system. A CEO doing manual tech support at 3 a.m. Isla stared at the phone on her desk. The same phone. The same desperate voice. Your voice. It feels safe. She'd helped him. She'd helped Mason Hale save lives. You will not tell anyone. Vanessa's voice made Isla jump. Her manager stood beside the desk, arms crossed. Tell anyone what? Isla asked, though she already knew. About the call. About whatever you think you did. Vanessa leaned closer. Nobody's going to believe you helped the CEO of a medical technology company. And even if they did, it won't change anything. You're not important enough to make a difference. The words landed like physical blows. Vanessa walked away, heels clicking against the marble floor. Walter appeared at lunchtime carrying 2 sandwiches. He sat beside Isla on the bench outside. Heard about the Hailtech situation, he said casually. Isla didn't respond. Also noticed you've been quiet all morning. That's unusual. What's the point? Isla's voice came out smaller than she intended. I could scream at the top of my lungs and people would still walk right past me, just like they did with my mom. Walter was silent for a moment. You know what I learned in 62 years? The people who walk past you aren't the ones who matter. The ones who stop those are your people, and they're worth speaking up for. The lobby doors opened behind them. Mason Hale stepped outside. He was taller than his photos suggested. Sharp suit, sharp eyes. But there was something underneath, a heaviness, like a man carrying impossible weight for too long. Excuse me. His voice carried natural authority. I'm looking for someone who works the night shift here. Isla's heart stopped. Vanessa appeared instantly. I can help you with that, Mr. Hale. Mason's eyes scanned the group. Someone helped me 2 nights ago. Someone with a calm voice. Someone who kept me from making a serious mistake. Vanessa didn't hesitate. That was me, sir. Isla's world tilted sideways. Mason frowned slightly. The voice I remember didn't sound quite like yours. Stress changes how everyone sounds, Mr. Hale. Vanessa's smile was perfect. You were in crisis. I have training in emergency protocol management. I'm glad I could be there for you. Mason studied her skepticism in his eyes, but he nodded, perhaps too exhausted to fight. I wanted to thank you personally. What you did, it wasn't just about the system. You kept me grounded. My sister used to say that the voice you hear in your darkest moment defines whether you make it through. The air went still. Isla watched Vanessa accept gratitude for something she didn't do. It was the theft of the most meaningful moment of Isla's life. And Isla felt it again, the supermarket floor. Her mother's hand going limp. The sound of people walking away while a shy girl begged them to stop. Say something, a voice screamed inside her head. Use your voice. This is your moment. But when Isla opened her mouth, nothing came out. Walter's hand touched her shoulder. Kid. He whispered urgently. Speak. But Mason was already turning to leave, thanking Vanessa one more time. Vanessa glanced back at Isla. A quick look, almost pitying. The look that said, "You see, you were never going to matter anyway." And Isla stood there, silent, frozen, as the man she'd saved walked away without knowing her name. Sometimes the hardest thing in the world is proving you existed in someone else's story. The night shift felt different now. Isla sat under the desk lamp, the same pool of light, but everything had changed. She wasn't invisible because people couldn't see her. She was invisible because she'd chosen silence over risk. The photograph of her mother sat on the desk. Isla touched it with trembling fingers. "I tried to help him, Mom," she whispered into the empty lobby. "But when it mattered, I still couldn't speak. Just like that day." The tears came without warning. The phone rang. Isla stared at it. The main line this time. She answered with shaking hands. "Night reception. How can I help? I'm looking for someone." The voice stopped her breath completely. "Mason Hale. The person I spoke to 2 nights ago. The one who guided me through the backup reset." A pause. "I need to know. Are you the one who helped me?" Silence stretched between them. Isla could hear her own heartbeat. "Yes." Isla said finally the word, barely more than a breath. "I'm the one who answered." Mason exhaled. It sounded like relief. "I knew it." Vanessa's voice wasn't right. It didn't feel the same. "I didn't think my voice could save anyone," Isla admitted. "I've spent 11 years believing that when it really matters, nobody listens to me. That I'm just invisible." "Why would you think that?" Mason asked gently. Isla told him everything. About the supermarket. About her mother's panic attack. About calling for help while people walked past. About the ambulance that came too late. About the heart condition no one had caught, because no one had stopped to listen. "I've carried this belief that my voice doesn't reach people. That I could scream for help and it wouldn't change anything." Mason was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice raw. "My sister had severe PTSD. She was a paramedic for 8 years, and one night she had a panic attack so severe she couldn't breathe. She called out for help, but no one came. Everyone was too busy, too afraid, too uncomfortable." Isla's throat tightened. "I've spent 3 years haunted by the fact that I couldn't save her. That I wasn't there when she needed someone's voice. And 2 nights ago, when that system was failing and I was falling apart, your voice." He paused. "It was the first time in 3 years I didn't feel like I was drowning alone." "You didn't just save patient data," Mason said softly. "You saved me from breaking completely." Isla closed her eyes. Tears ran down her face, but they felt different now. Lighter. "I'm going to set something straight tomorrow," Mason said. "I'm going to ask Vanessa to explain very specifically how she guided me through that backup panel. And when she can't, will you be willing to tell the truth? What if no one believes me?" "I'll believe you," Mason said simply. "And I promise you that will be enough." For the first time in 11 years, Isla allowed herself to think, maybe my voice does reach people. Maybe it always did. The next morning, Mason called an emergency meeting. Vanessa was summoned. So was Isla. Walter squeezed her shoulder as she stepped into the elevator. "Go tell your truth, kid." The conference room overlooked Seattle's skyline. Vanessa sat perfectly composed. Mason stood at the head, arms crossed. "Vanessa," Mason said, his voice calm but sharp. "Walk me through exactly how you helped me reset the backup system. Step by step." Vanessa didn't hesitate. I accessed the main server room and identified the failing protocol. Then I executed a manual override to stabilize the system. Interesting, Mason said slowly. Because I wasn't in the server room. I was in my office, and the backup panel isn't in any server room. It's a legacy system from before Hailtech existed. Vanessa's smile faltered. Tell me about the panel. Where exactly was it? What did it look like? Vanessa opened her mouth, closed it. It was a standard electrical panel. Where? The right side of the room. Which room, Vanessa? Silence. Mason turned to Isla. His expression softened. Tell me what you remember. Every instinct screamed at her to stay quiet, to disappear. But then she thought about her mother, about Mason's sister, about Walter's words. She took a deep breath. I heard your breathing, Isla said, looking directly at Mason. You were panicking. You told me the system was failing and people could get hurt. I asked you to breathe with me. She paused, remembering every second. Then I remembered something. Walter had shown me a backup panel on the right wall, metal about 3 feet wide. There was a flickering switch near the top. I told you to open it, to pull the red handle down, count to 10, and push it back up. The room was silent. Mason stared at her. You remember the red handle? Yes. You asked me if I was sure, and I said yes. You were scared it might make things worse. No one knows about that red handle, Mason said quietly. I only knew because I helped design this building's emergency systems 12 years ago. It's an old failsafe, not documented in any current manual. He turned to Vanessa. So tell me, Vanessa, how did you know about the red handle? Vanessa's face had gone pale. I must have read about it somewhere. Where? Mason's voice was steel now. Because I've just described something that only 2 people in this building knew about 3 days ago. Me, and whoever guided me through that panel. So which one are you? Vanessa stood abruptly. This is absurd. You're going to take the word of a night receptionist over a manager with 8 years of experience. Yes, Mason said simply without hesitation. Because she's telling the truth, and you're not. The words hung in the air like a verdict. Vanessa looked at Isla one final time, not with anger, with something sadder, recognition. Defeat. In that moment, Isla understood something profound. This wasn't just about her. It was about every shy person who'd ever been told they didn't matter. Every quiet voice that had been silenced. Every act of kindness that had been stolen or ignored. The invisible become unforgettable the moment someone chooses to truly see them. Vanessa left the building that afternoon. Isla watched from the reception desk as her former manager carried a small cardboard box through the lobby. She didn't look angry. She looked tired. Defeated in a way that had nothing to do with losing a job and everything to do with losing herself years ago. At the door, Vanessa stopped, turned back, walked over to where Isla stood. When I was your age, Vanessa said quietly, her voice stripped of its usual professional edge, I helped someone too. I stayed late. I solved a problem that wasn't mine to solve. I did the right thing. She paused. And you know what happened. My boss took credit, told me I should be grateful I even had a job, told me that nice girls finish last. Isla listened, seeing Vanessa clearly for the first time, not as an antagonist, but as someone who'd been wounded just like her. I learned the wrong lesson from that experience, Vanessa continued. I learned to take instead of give, to protect myself instead of others. To become hard because I thought soft meant weak. She looked at Isla with something like regret. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just telling you, don't become me. Don't let this place make you cruel. You've got something I lost a long time ago. What's that? Isla asked gently. The ability to hear when someone's drowning, and the courage to reach out anyway. Vanessa left through the revolving door. Walter appeared beside Isla, watching the door spin closed. That, he said thoughtfully, is what happens when you carry someone else's pain for so long you forget what your own voice sounds like. Isla nodded slowly. I don't want to hate her. Good, Walter said. Hate doesn't heal anything, but truth does, and boundaries do, and forgiveness not for them, but for yourself. That afternoon, Mason Hale came back downstairs. Not in a suit this time. Just a simple shirt and jeans looking almost approachable. Can we talk? He asked Isla. They sat on the bench outside the same bench where everything had begun to shift. The same weak Seattle sunshine trying to break through autumn clouds. I want to offer you a position, Mason said without preamble. At HaleTech, we're launching a patient psychological support program. People in medical crisis. People who need someone to talk them through the worst moments. Someone with a voice that makes them feel less alone. Isla's breath caught. I'm not qualified. I only finished 1 year of counseling studies before I had to drop out to take care of my dad. You're more qualified than anyone I know, Mason said firmly, because you understand what it's like to need someone and have them walk away. You won't do that to other people. That's not something we can teach. Isla looked at her hands, overwhelmed. I don't know if I'm ready. You guided me through a system failure while I was having a panic attack, Mason said gently. At 3 a.m, with no preparation. You're ready. He pulled out an envelope. This position comes with full health coverage. Comprehensive. I heard about your father. I can't promise miracles, but I can promise he'll have access to every resource we have. Isla's eyes filled with tears. Why are you doing this? Mason was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Because 3 years ago, my sister needed someone like you. Someone who would listen. Someone who wouldn't walk away. And she didn't get that person. So maybe if I help you become who she needed, it means her struggle wasn't completely pointless. Maybe some good can come from it. Isla understood completely. They were both trying to heal the same wound. The wound of not being there, of not being heard, of loss that left permanent scars. Okay, Isla said, her voice steady. I'll try. Mason smiled. It was small, but genuine. The first real smile she'd seen from him, and it transformed his entire face. One more thing, he said. I'm creating a foundation in my sister's name. For emergency responders with PTSD. For people whose voices get lost in their own minds. I'd like you to be part of the advisory board. People need to hear your story. They need to know that the quietest voice in the room can save lives. That being a shy girl doesn't mean being powerless. Isla thought about her mother, about the supermarket, about all the years she'd believed her voice didn't matter, that she was fundamentally forgettable. I'll do it, she said. For your sister, for my mom, for everyone who's ever felt invisible. Walter found her later that evening as she was packing up her belongings from the reception desk. Her last night shift. Proud of you, kid. Walter said, his voice warm. I'm scared, Isla admitted honestly. Good. That means you're doing something that matters. Walter smiled, his weathered face kind. You know what the best part is? You didn't just save that man. You saved yourself. And that's the most inspirational thing of all. Isla hugged him, this man who'd believed in her voice when she couldn't believe in it herself. "Thank you for telling me not to stay quiet. That's what us old-timers are for," Walter said, patting her back. "Making sure you young folks don't make the same mistakes we did. Making sure the shy girls know they're not actually shy. They're just waiting for the right moment to be heard. Justice doesn't always look like revenge. Sometimes it looks like someone finally being seen, heard, and valued." 3 months later, Isla Carter sat in a small office on the 40th floor of Avery Tower. Not the lobby, not behind a desk where people walked past without seeing her. An office with her name on the door, Isla Carter, Patient Support Specialist. The phone on her desk rang, the HailTech Crisis Hotline, a direct line for patients and families facing medical emergencies, confusion, or fear. Isla answered without hesitation. "This is Isla. I'm here. Tell me what's happening." A woman's voice breaking with panic. "My mother is in the hospital. They're saying she needs emergency surgery, but I don't understand the risks. I'm so scared. I don't know what to do. I feel so alone." Isla took a breath, centering herself. "It's okay. You're not alone. I'm going to walk you through this. We'll figure it out together." She spent the next 20 minutes translating medical terminology into plain language, explaining options, breathing with the woman until her panic subsided enough for clarity to return. When the call ended, Isla sat back in her chair. Her reflection in the office window showed someone different, still quiet, still kind, but no longer invisible, no longer that shy girl who believed her voice didn't matter. A knock on the door. Mason Hale stood in the hallway holding 2 cups of coffee and wearing a soft smile. "Busy?" he asked. "Always," Isla said warmly. "But never too busy for coffee." They'd fallen into an easy rhythm over the past months. Coffee breaks that turned into long conversations. Strategy sessions for the foundation that turned into shared stories of loss and healing. A friendship built on mutual understanding and something deeper, something that felt like 2 broken pieces fitting together in an unexpectedly heartwarming way. "I wanted to tell you something," Mason said, sitting across from her. "We got a letter today from a woman whose husband had a panic attack during a medical procedure. She said the voice on the crisis line, your voice, kept her from falling apart. She said it reminded her that kindness still exists in the world, that people still care." Isla's throat tightened with emotion. I'm glad I could help her." "You do more than help," Mason said quietly, his eyes holding hers. "You remind people they're not alone, that their fear is valid, that someone will stay on the line." He paused. "Just like you did for me." Their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them, recognition, gratitude, and something warmer, something that felt like healing and hope intertwined. "Your sister would be proud of what you're building," Isla said softly. "So would your mother," Mason replied. "She'd be proud of who you've become, of how you turned your wound into wisdom." Later, as the sun set over Seattle, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber, Isla recorded a new voicemail greeting for the crisis line. Her voice steady and sure and inspirational in its simple honesty. "You've reached the HailTech Crisis Support Line. If you're afraid, if you're overwhelmed, if you feel like no one understands, I'm here. You're not alone. Stay with me. We'll get through this together." She thought about the reception desk, the lonely lamp, the phone call at 2:47 a.m. that had changed everything, and she realized her voice had always mattered. She just needed someone to stop long enough to prove it to her. In the lobby 40 floors below, Walter Green made his evening rounds. He paused at the old reception desk, now staffed by someone new. The same lamp glowed in the darkness, a beacon for anyone who felt alone. He smiled, thinking about the shy girl who'd become something far greater. Not by changing who she was, but by finally believing in the voice she'd always had. "Good for you, kid," he whispered to the empty air. "Good for you." Sometimes the voice you think no one needs becomes the one that saves not just a life, but a soul. And that is the most inspirational truth of all.